Awesome. All right. So we are live and we're 5 seconds in. So if anyone is tuning in, we have the illustrious Rand Fishkin here, Spartoro. You were the CEO of Moz, right? Founder and CEO. So you were
That's right.
of the Wizard of Moz is what they called you. Exactly.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly. So good. All right. I guess we could get rolling here. And we have our little live thing going on there. So awesome. All right. I'll count us in and we'll get started. So in 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, and welcome to season 2, episode 14. Yes, episode 14 of the Digital Marketing Dive podcast. I'm Seth with Goldstein Media, and with me is, as always, the amazing and talented Shannon of Diane Business Consulting. Hey Shannon, how's it going?
Going great. Thank you so much, Seth. I appreciate it.
Always. And then guess who we have today? This is
I'm excited.
I'm stoked. We're making him blush. We have the amazing Rand Fishkin of the founder of Moz, who he is now the former CEO of Moz. He is the amazing author of Lost and Founder, which is like every startup should read this.
Yes, all of my small business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, read the book. Read the book.
Because it's the truth.
Yes.
If this book was out maybe 3 or 4 years prior, I've been like, maybe I shouldn't have joined that startup that burned. Maybe that's what happened. So it's a great book. I love it. We'll talk about that a little bit. And also Spartoro, which is like Zorro, but not. It didn't quite work. But anyhow, Spartoro, which is what it's like a digital. How would you describe Spartoro? I've been trying to tell Shannon, like, how do you describe it?
Yeah. It's a tool for audience research.
Oh, well, he's practiced.
He has.
He said that like the 5-second like elevator pitch down pat. Wow. I try to describe it and it takes me like 5 minutes. I mean, I love the tool. I'm in there playing with it and all that, but it's your baby. You should know it.
Like a lot of folks will sort of just say it's a tool to instantly discover what your audience reads, watches, listens to, follows.
It's pretty cool. I mean,
that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it can be a time suck because if you go in there without a clear goal, you're in there. You're like, "Ooh, I can go over here. Ooh, I can go over there," and it's a fun tool. And you can tell that Rand, you and your co-founder really enjoy the tool itself. Like it's a labor of love. Like which
I think we're very frustrated by how inaccessible data like this was, especially at scale, and
Sure.
Solving a big data problem like that to be able to say, oh, you want to know what, I don't know, software engineers in Newfoundland, Canada are following? We can tell you that. Oh, you want to know what podcasts are popular with woodworkers in Texas? Boom, we can tell you that. Oh, you're interested in
amazing.
Helping people who snowboard on amateur teams. You want to reach them through podcasts or webinars or events, or figure out who they're following on social, or learn which hashtags they're using. We can tell you all that too. So it's cool to be able to just type in a search and then magically all that data appears. Definitely a long labor of love. I think we spent almost 18 months building it before we launched last year. So it's
I was watching from afar because I follow you on Twitter. And would you say Twitter is really like your social that's like your social media? Like that's your thing.
Let's see. I use kind of in order Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I use Facebook really the least. And I would say I barely use Facebook at all. I basically just post blog updates to my business page, or my whatever they call it, person page, personality page. I don't know, public figure page. That's what it is.
The Rand Fishkin page.
But actually, and you know what? I do use Reddit quite a bit, but as a consumer more than an active contributor.
Yeah, sure. Reddit's gotten very good lately. It used to be kind of like in the outskirts of stuff, but like I'm on Reddit every day looking at something. It seems like.
Yeah, ditto. I think Reddit has built a very, very effective feedback loop, content loop. I think that they're likely to have a lot of success with the IPO that's
Yeah, I know, that's
planned.
exciting.
Sure.
Exactly. But it can also be very dangerous in the financial world, as they've proven with the whole GameStop stuff. I mean, come on now. But anyhow, back to this. The Spartoro. Oh, we got airplane. Is that you, Rand?
I think that might be me. Yeah, I can hear an airplane in the distance.
You know what? He's in the Pacific Northwest, so someone's probably flying in and landing on the bay, right?
Could very well be. Sounds military-ish. It's low flying.
There we go. Anyhow, so Spartoro, I remember when you first started talking about it, I think you had just left Moz, and you said, "I'm up to something." And so when everyone says, when you say you're up to something, we're like, "Oh, what is it?" And you started like releasing stuff slowly about what you're talking about and whatnot. How's it going so far with Spartoro? I mean, you said you started 18 months ago, and you released around 12 months ago, around a year ago, you like opened it up. How's it going so far?
Yeah, so I left Moz almost 3 years ago exactly.
Oh wow, okay.
And spent the first 18 months kind of building SparkToro. You know, we raised a little bit of money, non-venture money this time, which I think
if you read the book, you will know why.
Yes.
You will know why.
Yes,
nothing against venture capitalists, but you learn why Rand didn't do it that way.
I mean, some things against them, but all right.
I honed in on that point because I had like last fall, I was kind of looking at that and decided I needed to bring on a CFO and a COO and get our strategy in place first before I started committing to funds coming my way. So I really zoned in. Yes,
yeah,
I really zoned in on that chapter.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Shannon, I don't know if you've checked it out, but we raised money in a very unique way for SparkToro. So if you Google SparkToro funding, you'll see we sort of put together our own structure, and a few other startups have used it. It might be useful to you and to listeners, and if so, that would bring me great joy. We open sourced our documents, so our lawyers prepared them in a way such that anyone can download them and fill in their own stuff and raise money that way.
Sure, that's amazing. Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. So geektastic. That's geektastic. I love that.
Yeah, but awesome. So we basically spent that first 18 months building. We launched in April of last year, so we've been live for 11 months, and it is going. I would say we are significantly ahead of expectations in terms of budget, but not satisfied. I don't know how to describe it. Sure. As when you're a startup, like you have this weird mentality, like every day is different from, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can't believe how much we've accomplished in such a short amount of time, to like, oh, I feel terrible. We didn't have any sales in the last day or two. And what's going to happen? How's it? So this week, sales picked up, but 2 weeks ago, sales were down, and it's a roller coaster, man.
I think you have just hit on the emotions of every entrepreneur ever, right? Yes. You see those memes where it's like, I think I'm going to go from here to here, and it's more like,
that's the story of my life.
All did that. It's a roller coaster. You don't know, and it's a lot of times what area I'm focused on in my company. And then in the next second, I can focus on something else and it looks completely different. So I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, look, I learned a ton of lessons from Moz in that experience. I think, Casey learned a ton from his time at Ookla and HubSpot and Wistia, and he was with me for a few years there at Moz too. But it is still an absolute slog. Building a business. I have deep, deep empathy. I'm almost, I am both grateful and a little tired.
Well, you should be tired. You earned the tiredness. I mean,
it's weird, right? How the pandemic gave us all sort of this extra time, like, oh, I don't have all the commitments that I previously had. I'm no longer traveling. I don't see friends. I can't see family. I go to the store and to restaurants less. And somehow, despite all of that time savings, it feels both busier and more overwhelmed and just emotionally and intellectually harder to process days than ever before. And I don't think that is not a me thing. I'm probably
that's an everybody thing. Yeah,
that's an everybody thing. And so I just have, I have a great deal of empathy, especially for entrepreneurs and people at small and medium businesses who are trying to build something right now. Because I think it's a very challenging time. And in the macro picture of the US economy, there's this like just increasing gains going to, wealthy organizations and sort of the biggest companies and the wealthiest individuals. And then everybody else whose productivity the last, 25 years has skyrocketed, but who are seeing very little gains in terms of their average compensation on that front. So I would love to see a world where there's way more small and medium businesses. I want to build businesses that help small and medium businesses. I want to create content and do marketing and talks and all that kind of stuff that helps small and medium businesses. There's a lot of money to be had helping the Fortune 2000, but I don't really care about them. Sorry.
Yeah. No offense. No, but that's what I love about Spartoro is that it's also accessible.
Yeah,
You have a free account, which is I think it's 10 searches a month, which is completely usable. And then you have, I think it was 50, then it starts at 50 a month or at least last time I checked, it's 50 a month for more than that, obviously, with more perks and stuff like that, and up from there. I love when there's, and that's one thing I loved about Moz too, is that there's always something free. Yes, on the other side, to be a little cynical, it's a way to get your talent into the person and say, come be a client. But it's also you're saying, hey, this could be helpful to you. Here's some tools to help out everybody. And it's very, I mean, if you read the book, it's very Rand-like. I mean, it is.
I have been a consistent, counterculturalist on the enterprise side for sure.
I am 100% a Rand Fishkin motto hero here. This is great. I am all about it. My company works with small businesses, and the fact is it is so difficult for them to break through a lot of those barriers. And so anyone serving them in that way and that is allowing them entry level points and willing to grow with them, I'm all over. That's amazing.
It's fantastic.
I like companies that help those folks as well. And I think that's there's something, look, I mean, capitalism is not the most noble of pursuits, right? But if you're going to engage in building a company and, growing your revenue and all those kinds of things, I think one of the ways to mitigate the harm that you do is to help other small and medium businesses, small organizations, individuals accomplish their goals. I think it's a good way to go.
I agree. And I think that part of it is, people have these amazing ideas and services and want to change the world and want to change their communities and the economy and those kinds of things. And often they don't have the ability to take it from point A to point B to point C to point D, right? And so any company that's able to link arms and move forward together, we all have skills, we all have talents, we all have abilities to help each other. And working in that way, we all win. And I think that's what's important to me as a CEO. And I love hearing other people have similar views.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that, Shannon. And I think on the digital marketing side in particular, as we get into tactics and strategies, it's a very, very different ecosystem. And my sense is that a lot of the, sort of classic fundamentals of marketing and a lot of the digital tactics and techniques that are taught are meant for sort of big business, enterprise, large consumer product group businesses, and big B2B stuff. And unfortunately, that leaves out a ton of, hey, how do I, over the past year, there's been a ton of this in lockdown, of course, right? Like, how do I take my small business and get it online and start to make sales there and start to do marketing there and build up a community there, because I have no option to do that in the real world anymore. And so that is, I think, still an underserved and underappreciated sector of the market. I really want to see more businesses at scale serving those folks, but there's this like venture capital world hates serving that segment in particular. They feel like that is just a recipe for disaster because those folks tend to have high churn, right? So like, if you're a small business, if you're a small business, like I'm emailing with people like this all the time. They email, they're like, hey, we're canceling our SparkToro account. We really love it, but we need to save the budget this month. Great, that's fine. Like that's no problem. I am happy to serve you. If I had investors, they'd be like, don't ever get those people as customers. We don't want to see them on the books because their CLTV and their churn rate and their monthly estimate of contribution to margin is not good enough, and they make your SaaS business metrics look terrible. Stop serving them.
And that's a sad thing,
right? And there's a lot of pressure if you're going to go raise money or try and raise your next round or please your current investors or be, sort of interest to an acquirer or try to go public. You've got a really tough sell on that front.
It is. I mean, and that's one thing I love about your book, the book back up here, Lost and Founder, is that it really spells out, and you take no prisoners, which is a good thing. Like you say, and I mean, in the most respectful way possible, you spell out, here's how I started Moz, here's the lineage of Moz and how it got started, and here's our steps of what we did here. Here's what we liked about it. Here's what we didn't like about it, and it really, you put this book out after you left Moz, I assume, right?
As I was leaving, it was,
but that's the whole idea, is that, and it's nice to see a business book that spells out things the way they actually are, and it's not sugarcoating anything.
There was a whole, I'm not sure I've told this story before, but there was a whole dispute between the attorneys representing Moz's leadership team, and I had to hire an attorney, which was incredibly expensive over the course of a year, to represent me in discussions about my departure and severance agreement. And one of the big points of conflict was that the leadership team wanted a copy of my book that they could make changes to before it came out. And of course, my publisher, Penguin Random House, was like, "Oh, hell no!"
As a former journalist, people have asked me to see articles beforehand. I'm like, nope.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So there ended up being an eventual compromise. Took months of back and forth, and you're paying hundreds of dollars an hour for lawyers on both sides, right? But eventually, the compromise was I would send them chapters where their individual names were mentioned, but with no ability to edit or give feedback. So here's this thing before it goes live, but
here's a heads up. But the thing is, I don't feel like
the book is not.
Yeah, you didn't throw anyone under the bus.
No,
it was very Rand like. If anyone's following Rand, it's very pleasant.
Yeah, and there's only one person thrown under the bus in the book. This guy.
But you're on in the book. You're honest about your shortcomings, what you decide, why you did this, and how you would have done it differently. Everyone else you talk about, so even the VCs, you say, well, here's what I did right, here's what I did wrong, here's what I expected. It's very, I guess, from a kid from grew up in Quaker school, it's very Quaker-like. It's very not upfront. It's not very in people's faces saying, you're a jerk, you're a jerk, you're a jerk. No, it's saying, this is my take on it, and not throwing anyone under the bus. And it was a very good read because of that. There was no vindication, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think to be fair, my editor at Penguin, Nikki Papadopoulos, who edited this book and tons of others in her career, she really is an absolute professional. She sort of perfectly, I think, synchronized the lines between this is deeply interesting and people will care about it and it will be useful to them and it will have them hungry for the next page. And also, there's no reason to tell it in a vindictive or angry way, right?
Yeah.
That will not, that tone, that voice is both not you and not lasting.
Yeah,
That's
what I liked about the book. That's what I liked about the book.
Yeah.
And a lot of these books I'm reading, we just had Mark Schaefer on the show, and his books read like him, and like this reads like you. This reads like one giant tweet storm. Yeah,
one giant.
But it does. It reads like you put your thought into it, and you tweet it out. It has your personality, and it gets like who you are. It has pictures, which is nice. Don't knock that, because sometimes business books that don't have pictures, with diagrams and stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to grasp certain things, and it's perfectly placed. These diagrams that are like perfectly placed, right where you think you might lose the reader. There's a diagram that explains it, and it's like, oh, thank God. So I very, very much appreciate it. I love the book. Almost done it finally. I mean, it's been one of those books where I've put it down for a few months, picked it up, and was like, all right, we're having random. I'm going to finish this book. I am like the last chapter. I'm like, oh, I almost got there in time. But it's a great book. I'm finishing it.
I think the beauty of it is you are putting yourself out there in an authentic way. You're showing the upheaval. You're showing the pros, the cons, the pitfalls, that kind of thing. And saying, look, entering into this world is not a instant ticket for stardom or for billions of dollars, right? And you're not presenting it like, hey, I've got a 3-step formula, and if you just follow this, you're going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? Yeah. It's not like that. And founders world is not like that. Entrepreneurship is not like that. I appreciate you putting yourself out there and saying, look, this is what it actually looks like. And that authenticity, I think, really resonates right now on a myriad of levels. But it really, I really liked it a lot.
I love it.
That was actually one of the toughest parts of the sell to publishers, right? So, in traditional publishing world, you sort of, you get an agent, you put together a pitch, you fly to New York and pre-COVID, right? You fly to New York and you go pitch.
Remember what that's like?
Yeah. It's funny because totally different incentives, very different type of person, but it felt very similar to me to going to Silicon Valley and pitching for venture capital, right? So I'm trying to get my book published. I'm trying to get, my company funded. It had a lot of similarities on that front, but with the publishing side, I think a lot of the feedback was, hey, business books tend to sell best when they are, here's the secret to success for whatever it is, right? And, if I look at all the books on my shelf, they're all, they're sort of summarizable, here's this one way to do this thing. And I love some of those books. I was just talking to April Dunford, who wrote Obviously Awesome, and fantastic book on positioning, but it is very, here's one thing, here's the secrets to positioning, here's how to do it, very tactical. I like it. I think that's super useful. But it wasn't the book that I had, right? And that, because it was awkward, just non-standard, it was a tough sell.
But I liked that it was not standard. I liked that it was kind of autobiographical a little bit. There's a lot of Rand in it. There's also but it's a cautious lessons of what you should keep an eye out for. If you want to do this, great, go for it. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but be aware. Here's what I bumped into on the way.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it was Nikki's input, basically saying hey, here's this valuable lesson, almost a mini business book in each chapter that you're trying to give people. And what I want you to do is essentially take data, take stories and experiences, and then put your own experience as the narrative that makes it interesting to a reader, right? That gets them through the chapter, like, oh, they want to see how the story goes and how the story ends. And so they'll read it through, and then also they'll pick up this knowledge as they go through that. I thought that was a very wise content structuring tactic.
Absolutely. It was. And I also love, because everyone who follows you on social media knows that you have a better half that is fantastic. And I love that you give her a hat tip, Geraldine, a hat tip in the book, saying that, she was very integral, I'm not sure if that's a word, but, she was had a role in Moz and how much you appreciate her and all that. I saw that big smile on my face. I'm like, she made an appearance. It was so
funny,
I love that.
Funny story. When I flew to New York to pitch publishers with Lost and Founder, she also flew to New York and pitched publishers for her book all over the place. And she got a deal. I think she got a deal right before I did.
There you go.
Anyway, it was sort of like, nearly simultaneous. And I believe her advance, this is speaking of, gender imbalances, her advance was much smaller than mine, but her book has outsold mine.
Well, there you go. Karma.
Yeah, I mean, that is in my... in my opinion, there's a lot of devaluing of certain kinds of foci and labor and voices.
Yeah, that's right.
And publishing tragically is no different.
Exactly. But I guess you can say that couples that publish together stay together.
Absolutely.
I had to say that, but yeah, definitely. But yeah, so obviously there's venture capital with Moz. There's your own sort of fundraising with Spartora. We'll have a link in the show notes to your blog post about that. But what was the most striking difference that you saw with between Moz and Spartora? What was the big, oh my God, this is so freaking different?
Yeah, I would say the incentive model fundamentally changes, which in the venture capital ecosystem essentially closes a bunch of pathways and channels, right? So, Shannon, you were talking about I want to hire an operations person, I want to hire a finance person, right? And they're going to sit down with you and determine what your company's strategy will be and which specific tactics you'll follow and what the metrics are that you need to measure. And in venture capital world, there's an extremely specific definition of success, right? The venture capital model is invest in 100 companies, 95 of them basically die, go bust. 2 or 3 of them are mild successes, return 3 to 5x the amount invested. And hopefully 1 or 2 are breakout superstar unicorns that return 10x, 20x, 50x, right. And basically make the fund. And so the incentive for every company inside the venture portfolio is to try and become those 1 or 2 unicorns. And that means growth at all costs. Growth is much more important than profit. So, Shannon, I don't know how is your business? What's its structure?
How is it structured?
Yeah. It's Shannon bootstraps, right? More bootstraps. Yeah.
We're creating back-end companies behind entrepreneurs. So at a fractional level, we provide C-suite, admin, sales, marketing, accounting, IT, HR. We build those companies behind and put an account manager on them to run it so the entrepreneur can stay in their lane of passion and driving their business.
Got it. And you're self-funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. So as you're building out like each of these services, you have the opportunity to say, 2021, we really want to focus on growth. I am happy to, if we want to, I'm happy to burn $100K or $1 million of capital and lose that money in order to grow at a faster rate. And next year you could change your mind and say, hey, I want to make a significant profit this year. Let's cut our costs and expenses. Let's not spend as much on marketing. We're going to try and go more organic, and whatever the growth rate is, it is. I don't care as long as we maintain our happy customers and yada, yada. Or you could say, hey, you know what? I've been doing this a long time. I need 3 months off. So things are going to be slower and whatever, and I don't mind. I don't care about that, right?
Right.
Let the business run as it needs to. Every option is on the table. 10 years from now, you could sell the company for a fortune. You could shut it down and just be happy with the career you had. You could merge with another business for stock. You could give it away to your employees. You could donate all the profits to charity. A million options are available to you. Venture capital, one option. Well, two. Become a unicorn, die trying. Right. So every sort of decision that you make at the growth level, marketing level, product level, strategy level, it is all fixed by the incentive structure that you have and where you have to go with that, which is incredibly different than SparkToro. For example, Casey and I, we chose to keep it just the two of us so that we could be profitable. And the reason we did that, there were two reasons. One, we felt like there was a lot of uncertainty in the economy, and we didn't want to be exposed to that and potentially have risk.
And this is pre-COVID too.
Yeah. So pre-COVID and post-COVID, both of those, right?
Yeah.
We decided, hey, there's just so much uncertainty. Casey was crazy stressed around the election time. Like he was like, he thought that the other candidate had a high risk of getting reelected, and that would have knock-on effects, economically and on our business, et cetera, et cetera. And so we made decisions around keeping our costs as low as they possibly could be and optimizing for profit. And as a result, growing slower. We haven't run a single ad. We haven't spent $1 on marketing. Like that's the choice that we get to make.
Sure.
If we were venture backed, that is absolutely not a choice that we could reasonably make, right? We would need that growth rate in order to, sort of make our next round and get the markup that our portfolio, that the portfolio we were in, needed for us. And it's different. Super different. Super different.
Super different. Exactly. So, Shannon, let's mention your event coming up. I think
absolutely very excited. So it switched from the last Friday of March to the 23rd of April. So, we're having it in Indianapolis. We are having 20 live seats for those who are in the Indy area and want to join. We're also doing it virtually. It is for small business owners. We are bringing leaders in finance, operations, sales, and marketing, which are the places that small business owners struggle the most a lot of times. And so our goal is to help people realize that we can go at this together, right? And it's an all-day event. I'm emceeing on the importance of mindset for small business owners, and it's just going to be a fun time. Check it out. It's once more, we've got virtual and live in person, which
be great. Yeah,
I know at the tail end of COVID, it seems almost magical to have an in-person event at this point.
Yes, exactly. And also, speaking of COVID, we're not out of the woods yet. We want to thank our next sponsor, Breezy Masks. Silver nano protected protection. I still can't get past the silver nano part of that.
Over that every time.
Yeah, every time. But they have silver nano protected masks. They have two. The Exchange, which is 5 layers of protection. They have the Sport, which is more breathable, which is 2 layers of protection. Link is in the show notes. So check those guys out as well. So, and then of course Alex at the top of the show, Alex Hillman, who is the Tiny MBA. His book, we want to thank him for that as well. But back to Rand, our guest of the hour here. So Rand, when you started Moz, way back when, did you know that it was going to become what it is? When you started way back when, did you have any idea that it was going to be like a household name, at least in the SEO community?
No, certainly not. It started originally as a blog and then became a consulting business and then later a software business. And, for a lot of those years, like we were consistently surprised by sort of how it was taking off. And obviously a ton of that was the fact that we were hitting that market at the right time. Timing is absolutely huge. in a ton of these things, and I think there's a lot of people who ascribe brilliance and genius and hard work to what is essentially a lucky break because of excellent timing, right?
Yeah, and and you're being modest. There's some knowledge, there's some brilliance, there's a spark of something there. There's definitely a lot of hard work there. I mean, anyone who follows you on Twitter knows that you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah, but there are absolutely 10,000 people in internet focused software businesses who were working harder and were smarter people and didn't have the success that Moz had because the field that they were in didn't end up taking off. Right?
It's all luck.
A lot of that is luck.
A lot of it's luck.
Yeah, luck and timing and opportunity. Right. I happened to be a kid who got a computer when he was pretty young, right? My parents had a computer in my mom's office at home. That was unaffordable for a lot of kids in the late 80s, early 90s, right? So that's certainly a huge leg up. I mean, I'm a dude. I'm white. I'm in the United States of America. I'm in a coastal city with a great airport. Whatever. I don't have a lot of things that would hold me back from being able to fly somewhere and get on a stage. You could get down to Cupertino. You could get down to Silicon Valley very easily. Yeah, right. At like
an hour or two. Yeah.
Yeah. My parents had enough money to pay for a few years of college for me.
Exactly.
It's just a ton of lucky breaks and opportunities that I think, unfortunately, in retrospect, people are like, oh, he must have been really smart or worked really hard or he's a marketing genius, whatever it is. And if you take the average distribution, like I'm probably somewhere in the middle of the curve. I don't know that I'm a super outlier, but it just looks that way in retrospect. And so I think there's this desire, especially among American entrepreneurs, to just view them as like superheroes, and they're not. Like, if your mom and dad own an emerald mine in South Africa, you're going to be like doing pretty good regardless of
you have to work really hard to blow that one up.
Yes,
and there's no pun necessarily intended there, but and I get that, and that's one thing I like about our community is that at least the ones that are on the white hat side, they seem to be good people. They are down to earth. And that's the thing I like about the SEO community is that it's accessible. Yeah, I could tweet Rand and he'll write me back.
I found web marketers globally, just all over the world. I think because marketing demands empathy. You just get a lot of really, really good people. That there's of course some buttholes out there, but
well said.
I have just been shocked and amazed at how many fantastic people Geraldine and I have come across in our travels all over the world, and you've
made some good friends. You've made some good friends too, like Will Reynolds in Philadelphia, where you even swapped businesses for what was it? Yeah. I love that. I was watching that. You guys swapped businesses for what was it, like a month or a few weeks?
Will and I traded CEO roles for a week, which is one of the chapters in Lost and Founder. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I watched that live, and I was like, "That's cool."
Yeah, that was an experience.
The culture shock of different things. But Rand, this has been great. Where can people find you? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but other than Twitter, Randfish. Where can people find out about you?
Sure. Yeah. So I blog fairly regularly, usually about every week at sparktoro.com. And of course, you can try the software for free too there. I'm also happy to answer questions over email. I'm rand@sparktoro.com.
There you go. He gives out his email address.
Yeah. I mean, it turns out if you Google it, Google has a little featured snippet for my email. So,
Oh, really? They got you there. Oh, no. Oh, no. Google. Hey, you didn't put no follow on that.
No index. No index is what I need.
Index. Yeah, no index. You're right. Exactly. So. Well, Shan, this is always fun.
Absolutely. Rand, this has been amazing. Honestly, I've just kind of been listening and taking it in. I appreciate once more your authenticity in this role. It is tough, being an entrepreneur, being CEO, being a founder, and those are the people we work with every single day. And so I just appreciate you putting yourself out there and presenting it like it really is.
Oh, that's what I love about you.
If I can be helpful to you or the audience, please let me know. And best of luck with the event. That sounds very exciting.
Thank you.
We're all cheering along here. And we want to thank our sponsors, so many at the time, the NBA, Breezy Masks, and of course, Shannon, who's doing that awesome event at the end of April. Hopefully, it'll be at the end of April, and we won't have to push it off anymore.
Absolutely.
Everything looks like it's heading in that good direction. Check out all the links in the show notes for all that stuff. Please review us on the podcast directory of your choice, Apple Podcasts. I love Podchaser, so check it out over there. We're doing some good stuff over there as well. And you can always find us, Digital Marketing Dive. I'm not going to make the Twitter joke, but Digital Marketing Smushed on Twitter. I usually smush it and make a fool of myself. Anyhow, and you can always email us, and Frank gave out his email address. You can email us at hello@digitalmarketingdive.com. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.